welcome to Love on the Planets for the week of April 16th, 2018. I'm Armand Diaz in a dark and dreadful New York.
Well, I'm Margaret Gray in an equally dark and rainy Dublin. So let's hope the spring and summer comes soon for all of us.
Indeed, indeed. It's very much delayed. And very much delayed, I feel, because Chiron has been going through the end of Pisces, and we just need a little bit more winter. We need a little bit more Pisces season before we get to the springtime. We're coming out of the Aries new moon this week, but Chiron, for a couple of days, is still at the very last moment of Pisces.
And what a change, though, Armand, with Chiron going into Aries. And of course, he's going to be in Aries until October and then back in Pisces until March 2019. So this is really a very important time because Tuesday is going to give us a taster as he goes into Aries and over the next few months of what it's going to feel like. And that energy is really very, very different. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And also this week, of course, we've got the Sun-Uranus conjunction. So that's kind of, that's pretty major because it's actually the last conjunction until 2094, the Sun-Uranus conjunction, because of course Uranus goes into Taurus. So
in Aries, it's the last conjunction.
Yes, I'm so sorry, I wasn't clear. Yes, so that's quite an interesting one. So plus, of course, we've got the Sun going into Taurus. You were saying earlier we've got a lot of retrogrades happening this week. So an incredibly busy week, but I think maybe we should start with the Chiron into Aries. I mean, what are your thoughts about Chiron moving into Aries for relationships?
Well, Chiron in Pisces is a especially difficult one because Pisces is such an emotional sign. So much of the darker side of Pisces, addictions and so on, can come up when Chiron is prominent. Chiron going into Aries, it's Aries is our independence, the beginning, our sense of self as it starts out. And Chiron coming along to that, it's almost kind of like, I kind of picture like the little bud that comes out of the earth and somehow gets curled around by some sort of, the sun is too hot or something along those lines. And it makes me think of sort of like stunted or a little bit distorted growth.
That could be, and I agree with you. I think the Chiron in Pisces was particularly hard in relationships because I think it was almost, that real sense of aloneness and loneliness regardless. And so it was easy to project that onto a partner and say, you're not giving me enough or you don't love me enough, when actually it was all about self-care and self-love and a connection with something greater than us, which no human being can meet. I think in Aries, I'm wondering if it is going to bring up, as you say, those issues of independence and dependency, because Aries is such an interesting sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's the child of the zodiac. It's highly independent, and yet it likes to have playmates around. So it likes to have connection with people, but to remain independent. So I think when Chiron moves signs, it always brings up those bits of us that are a little fragmented, that are a little disjointed, and really asks us to integrate them, to heal them, to connect with them. So I wonder once it moves into Aries, how that will feel in relationships. Those issues of independence, interdependence, dependency, all those issues I think will come to the fore.
I think that they will. I don't know that Chiron in Aries is going to be so much about relationships. It throws it back on ourselves. Who are we? What are we capable of doing as individuals? And then, of course, that is something that necessarily affects relationships. So I think it's going to be a little bit ouchy, as you would say, just at the very beginning. And yet, it's coming on this week when, the Sun meets Uranus in Aries. Actually, the Sun goes over Eris and Uranus in Aries. Saturn stations, Pluto stations. It's a firecracker of a week. If we've been mired for the last couple of weeks, the beginning of April, I think there's a very big change. I don't know if I think we're going to be dealing with too much to even necessarily come within and know what's going on.
That's so true. Now, one of the aspects, though, that's quite nice is the Venus-Jupiter opposition, which I think will be an interesting one, with also Venus trine Pluto on the same day, this all happening when Chiron goes into Aries. I think there could be kind of there could be a reconnection with some depth and motion in terms of relationships, with some sensuality, with, just a reconnection with that passion for somebody important in our lives. So I think that might be, that might be just something that's gives us a little bit of comfort or a little bit of hope, because the others are really quite jagged in terms of energies.
There are some very jagged energies. This will help to put up a little bit of, it will help to smooth things out, at least early in the week. Although after those aspects are over, things continue to sort of heat up and move onwards. I think that one thing I think that those aspects may do, Venus-Jupiter aspects can often signal a kind of a time when I don't want to say escapism, but we can maybe overdo it a little bit. And maybe if we're feeling a little bit bad about things, it could also be a time when maybe we think, well, what feels good? And we sort of, a little overindulgence wouldn't be entirely out of the question.
Yes, maybe as a little bit of a distraction, because the Sun-Uranus conjunction certainly is a little jagged and more of that independence energy. However, on Friday, of course, the Sun moves into Taurus. So that's going to feel like a little bit of a shift, because it's very grounding. I think that Taurian energy of, it joins Venus that's still in Taurus. So there's more of that kind of, let's come into our body, let's connect on a physical level, let's hold hands, rather than maybe trying to have a conversation. So I think that can help. And plus, Pluto going retrograde is also interesting, because I think when he goes direct, he's like such a big steam train about changing, challenging our structures, challenging our commitments to each other. And I think going retrograde for the next 5 months will really give us some time to review some of the changes that have happened recently, which have been quite a lot for a lot of people.
Indeed, they have. I think that you're right about the Sun going into Taurus, and that. What's really interesting though is that it's moving from a fire sign to an earth sign, and Margaret, we have virtually no air in the sky today. It's been weeks. If the moon goes into an air sign, that's an exception, and Pallas Athene has gone into Gemini. That's about all we have. All the rest of it is a lot of fire, a lot of earth, a lot of water, not a lot of perspective. And what you're saying is, and Mercury has just gone direct, right? So it's still very much in his shadow for the next couple of weeks. Yeah, conversations may not do it. Actions speak louder than words. We're really at a time when it may be actions rather than words.
Yes, I think out of our mind and more into our heart and into our body, and really kind of ground ourselves. And we've often said this before, but, really spend some time in nature, particularly when these energies are so jagged, they're hard on the nervous system. Really keep grounded, go outdoors if you can, regardless of the weather, and just kind of also do some nice sensual things, prepare a nice meal together, maybe go shopping, grow some vegetables in the garden together, just do something with friends and family and loved ones that is very earthy, is that Taurian earthiness.
I would consider it. Don't forget that the Sun doesn't get into Taurus until the weekend. I would don't beat yourself up this week if you don't feel all that calm and you don't feel like going to plant anything in the garden. It may be time to chop wood or something. The Sun at the end of Aries meeting up with Uranus. There's a lot of really jangly stuff in the air this week. It's not an easy week, I don't think. And coming out of the Aries new moon, it's like we want to get going. Saturn stations. There's a lot of stuff that just feels like you might sort of trip over yourself trying to move too fast. It's a great idea to try to slow down. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can do it.
Well, you can go chop wood, Armand, and I'll go and plant vegetables, and we'll see how that works for us on different sides of the ocean.
We don't chop vegetables.
They'd make a nice soup, though, which would be very nurturing. So, well, on that note, I will see you next week, Armand. Take care.
Bye-bye.